Hey, gang. Okay, we will continue training on the forms that you'll need to write a contract. Let's get this all up here top for you. The residential property disclosure statement. There is the form that you will need as a listing agent for your seller in Virginia to put on that form that they are disclosing or disclaiming, and you'll have to have them sign the one-page document, which comes from the state of Virginia. And there's a link in that document and on that page that takes you to the long form of the residential property disclosure statement. And that's what this is here. So the buyer will receive that short form to sign off and say, yes, I've been disclosed to. And if they click the link, this is the page it goes to. We like to make sure that everyone involved in the property disclosure statement has actually taken a look at it. And so we want you to know what's in here as well. It's about 4 pages long. I'll get through it as quickly as I can because I'm assuming you can read, and then you just know where it is and what you need to do with it. But this is what the disclosure statement is about. First of all, it's about the condition. The owners of the residential real property makes no representations or warranties as to the condition of the real property or any improvements thereon. Now, let me stop right here. That is going to be the opening statement on almost every single one of these paragraphs. So what you really have here is that the owner is saying, I don't know anything about the property that I can tell you about the property. If they will, that would be somewhere else in the contract. But right now, all of these start and finish begin with no representations or warranties about the property. The condition of it. And so this is where we are in a caveat emptor state. And so the buyer needs to do home inspections as they would like to do to find out the condition. Lot lines, the owner makes no representations with respect to current lot lines. So this is where we get the question from a lot of buyers. We just had a meeting on this at the in one of our team meetings, and the attorney said, should you get a survey? And so this is why, because the seller makes no representations about the survey. It's about $400 in today's world. If it's a larger lot, it could be upwards to $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. If it's a really large lot, like 4, 5, 6, 10 acres. But the seller saying, I don't know anything about that. You need to get a survey. I don't know what's going on with the adjacent parcels. So I don't know if that's a pig farm or if that's just always going to be raw land. I don't make any bones about that. Makes no representations to matters that pertain to whether the provisions of any historic district ordinance affect the property. So if you're in an older part of town, Old Town Alexandria, Fairfax, these are some of the towns that we have that are maybe under historic district ordinances, Fredericksburg, places like this that have a historic piece to it. They're making no representation as to whether they're in one or not in one. You'll have to check that out as a buyer of a property. Resource protection areas, don't know, and make no representations of anything that's connected to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. And so it's up to the buyer to understand that. The reason they'd want to know that is, what can I do with my land? And if they're in a resource protection area, then it's going to limit what they can do with their land and what they can do with their lot. Make no representations with respect to information on any sexual offenders registered in the area. And so again, it's up to the buyer to do that research. A link to the state police website of sexual offenders registry is in the contract, and we also have in other forms that buyers can have access to. A dam break inundation zone. Now, this doesn't mean a really big, not just a big dam that's holding back a lot of water and generating electricity, but this is also dams of man-made lakes, or maybe there's a beautiful lake that's been made in a new development, and there's a lake there, and there's an area where if it broke, it would inundate the area. So they're making no representations of that. Wastewater system. And so they're just saying, check it out. Is there a wastewater system? You know, you would think that if you're in a subdivision that this would never be an issue. But I remember a case I had at one point where the buyers moved into the subdivision property, and they were having issues with the flushing the toilet. And when the plumber got there, he says, you know, you're on a septic, right? Quarter acre lot inside of a subdivision. It was one of the older properties that was not pulled in to the public sewer. So there's no representation on wastewater. Solar energy collection devices, whether they can or cannot have that, they got to check that out on themselves. Special flood hazard areas. We have flood maps in our records to help show that. But the buyer, if they're concerned, may need to look up the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program map. Number 11, conservation or other easements. I make no representations about that. And so the buyer needs to look at the master plan and see what's going on with the property that's around the property I'm looking at purchasing. Community Development Authority, no representation about that, what the local government is trying to do or not do. Marine clays is about the soil. I make no representations as far as the radon gas. This is an interesting one. People want to do a test on radon gas. Remember, radon is a nationwide issue. It's a worldwide issue. It's a naturally occurring gas. And it's not really a matter of whether you have radon gas. It's a matter of whether how much you have in your property. And so there are levels there that can be done through testing, and that's usually through the home inspection radon testing addenda. Defective drywall, they make no representation about that. Lead pipes, all of these things are dealt with in the contract and addenda, but the seller is saying here, I make no representations about whether it's there or not there. Impounding structures or dams. Is it, about anything that's under the ownership of the common interest community? Again, when you see this beautiful lake, look at it to see if something happened here, where would that water go if that's a concern for the buyer? And then these are other listings of different disclosure forms that may be required in the selling of a property, but are not part of this disclosure form. Military air installation, pending building code or zoning, list pendants filed, properties previously used to manufacture methamphetamine, privately owned stormwater management and septic system operating permits. So this is the long form that is in a link on the short form for buyers to click and take a look at to see what is being disclosed and what is not being disclosed. So that's that form there. It's required with every sale of property in Virginia, except for foreclosures and properties that were inherited. Otherwise, you should be seeing the short form to be signed off by the buyer and the seller, and this long form, which explains everything that needs to be done or that needs to be disclosed per the law. Okay, thanks so much, and I will talk with you soon. Bye.